Alternative Dig Talk. Real issues, real talk.
Hi Rogers, can I ask you something?
Shoot.
What does corruption mean?
Well, summarily, corruption is abuse of public power for personal gain or for the benefit of a group to which one owes allegiance. For example, when a public office is abused by an official accepting or soliciting a bribe. By the way, private people can be corrupt too, like bribing police officers to escape fines.
Okay. So exactly how does that concern me?
Well, do you pay taxes?
I guess yeah. What does that have to do with this?
Everything. Because those taxes you pay are supposed to facilitate services you use, like water, electricity, roads construction, medicines in hospitals, name it.
Okay, that is much bigger than I thought. But it can be stopped, right?
Well, yes it can, although it may not be as easy as it sounds. And here is the reason why. Corruption roots are grounded in our country's social, political, economic, bureaucratic traditions and policies.
So, what has kept it going this long? I mean, why don't we stop it?
Well, the main reason why it has been here for so long is because institutions are weak, either as a result of poorly defined ethical standards of public service, weak administrative and financial systems, or ineffective watchdog agencies.
What can we do to stop it?
At a national level, we must focus on strengthening the independence and effectiveness of public institutions that fight corruption. At a personal level, we must commit to never giving a bribe.
I promise I'll never give a bribe.
Well, that's a great decision you have made. Me and you now have to spread this message to all our friends. If we all do our part, corruption will be no more.
This message is brought to you by Alternative Dig Talk. The Alternative Dig Talk. Real issues, real talk.
I suppose it's a good evening. My name is Norman Tumuhimbise. We are streaming live from our Dig Talk house in Lukulinanga and Makindye. We stream live also on our social media pages, the Facebook page, under the caption of the Alternative Uganda, and also YouTube, and the rest of the social media pages also get an opportunity to have our show. Today being Monday 16th, I am with senior citizens in this studio, and who will have to share with us a lot in regards to what we have for our viewers today. Our show will run from 7 to 9 p.m., but in particular we're here to discuss our national budget as read and presented to our country last week Thursday by our minister. In fact, should we call him acting minister? Or he holds out as because the formal acting, the constitutionally known minister for finance is the president of the Republic of Uganda. But when such a minister who holds that office comes on board, represents the president. So let us assume he was representing formally what the president believed in as the former minister for finance. Nonetheless, the theme of the budget event was full monetization of Uganda's economy through commercial agriculture, industrialization, expanding and broadening services, digital transformation, and market access. We shall reread this very theme. On my left is, I don't like calling people who were in the bushmen, like the history of senior for the bushmen of South Africa. But nonetheless, on my left is a bushman, for lack of another day, because he was in the bush fighting to bring the government in, which is in power now, Mr. Vianney Ngoma Matovu. In the middle is Mr. Joseph Ochieno. He's looking forward to taking on UPC as its president. And in the extreme left is Honorable Pollar, Awich. The last time we were here, he was closer to me. I don't know why he has shifted that goalpost. But nonetheless, the questions will definitely reach him there, no matter how far he is. Mr. Matovu, say hello to our viewers and we shall proceed, sir.
Thanks, Bwana Moderator. Our viewers, I am welcoming you from this mighty show, and we shall entertain your views. And don't bring cosmetic views of praising us.
Aren't you trying to threaten people? Don't threaten our viewers.
They should check us. There is a habit which is now running, cutting across all parties. No incredulous finger should be pointed, or even critiquing. Now critiquing in Uganda is an offense. It will soon be subjected to a division as per the legislation of Parliament called military court martial.
By the way, the law has been signed for that matter, so make sure after you have spoken what you want to speak, don't insult the security, don't threaten the security. Okay, Mr. Ochieno, say hello to our viewers, and maybe I should have asked Mr. Matovu before even question you, in like a minute, to summarize your week. How has your week been? I think, it would be fair, Mr. Matovu, to...
A week has been not good, because we have learned that our benefits have been squandered, cheated.
What do you mean your benefits?
On the pronouncement of Heroes Day. We found that
we shall reach there. I know you have your issues. You want a medal, but Mr. Ochieno, please. I don't know whether you also want a medal. We can get some, but proceed in a minute to summarize your week, the previous week.
If I am to get a medal, it should be a medal for surviving 40 years of NRA, but it should also be a medal for surviving 4.5 years of NRA in the bush, because this guys really terrorized us in Kampala. And so for the record, this guy was in the bush.
You are midist, and I can see a midist.
So yeah, so I'm really flanked here, but no, these are fantastic guys. Okay. These are fantastic guys. But no, the week has been ordinarily frustrating. You could call it normal week in Kampala, but frustrating if you spend 2 hours, on traffic and not knowing what it is until you begin seeing mean-looking soldiers, and then you get to know that Mr. Museveni is about to pass, or his wife, or his children, or his grandchildren. These guys should just take Kampala to. You could just take it to Nyabushozi.
Or you'd rather also shift and leave it to them. Why do you want to chase them away?
Shift to where?
Why are you sending them away? You can also, in the alternative, give them a peace, and you go back to Tororo. They enjoy.
Yes, we'll take him.
Okay. Maj.Rtd.Awich, please. Yes. I think you have heard somebody, he wants you people. Okay. Maj.Rtd.Awich. Say hello to our viewers and give us an insight of how your week has been the previous week.
Good evening, viewers. I'm always happy to be here every Monday to share views with my colleagues. My week was quite remarkable because I had visitors from our friendly comradely party from China. I picked them up on Sunday from the airport, and I was with them throughout up to midweek. Then I took them back to the airport. They were top members of the Communist Party, and we had quite a lot of engagement.
What do you share in common, NRM and the Communist Party?
NRM and...
Because you seem to be very different in how you operate. When it comes to corruption, the Communist Party does other things, NRM does other things. Kindly share. What do you share in common that they picked interest in coming here?
What we share in common is that the Communist Party and NRM are ideally are progressive parties. And also one central common meeting ideological point is that we share the view that the working person, the workers, in alliance with the peasants, can form themselves and transform a country against the greater exploitative capital, the capitalist West. So the strategy that you use to bring this alliance of the workers and the peasants alliance to defeat capital or to use capital to elevate the life of the ordinary people that I've referred to matters. And that is why sometimes you find, like now, China has made its progressive application of what they call communism or socialism with Chinese characteristics. In other words, China is a communist party, a communist party-led country, but they have tactfully used capital to elevate the welfare of the people and bring development. So the core principle of meeting between the two parties is in the ideological framework of a revolution based on the alliance between the workers and the peasants. If you have a society which is predominantly peasants and there's less working class, you forge that alliance and you use it through what is called the National Democratic Revolution. That is a stage where you're progressing at that level. So that is a very critical point of unity of NRM and the Communist Party of China.
Humbled to hear. We pray and look forward to seeing what you discussed materializing. I want to now open this discussion formally, but also with asking, of course, like a minute also from each one of you to share with the world what you, because the other week we had Heroes Day, and I wanted to hear Mr. Vianney, the annoyed one, for lack of another word, because maybe what he considers important or relevance of that Heroes Day, and whether it even still contains water and worth celebrating. Yeah, I think can take it from there.
Now, I'm not annoyed.
You're disappointed?
I'm giving out what is the truth of the matter. Heroes now is within the offices, is not within those who were with, those who are in office and those who were not in practice, to be together to share deeper insights. It is only ceremonial now, in a tent, celebrating. This should be a moment of screening. We were with 10 points. How many of those has been achieved? It shouldn't be an issue of dancing, drumming.
And you rather feeling jealous and envious of the honorable witches who be there dancing and celebrating their heroism acts?
That is not jealous.
It is envy.
He's advising them. He's advising them.
It goes beyond jealous, it becomes envy.
He's advising them to remember others and share with them.
Comrade Awich, please remember others.
He's taking notes. Now you remember you.
He's not taking notes. Records.
Okay, Mr. Chuita is taking records. Okay, now you are applying
putting it on record.
Okay.
Should include others.
So you find it enclosed. It's just closed. It's a closed thing for them. He will give us his take.
They are having a smuggling.
How would you have wanted it to be organized in a minute?
They are having a smuggling word, which is in law, they call it mandate. That one who is not within the confines of those committees has no mandate. Those within the committees are the one with mandate.
You're pointing at Honorable Awich. So it's one of the people with the mandate. How would you have wanted it to be?
With mandate.
In a minute, how would you have wished to have Heroes Day organized? Like in a minute. A summary of how you'd want it to be.
A Heroes Day should be organized to screen and view ourselves. Did we deliver what the social contract we had?
That's for the NRM's day. The how do they call that day? The 26th Jan every year, Liberation Day, but not for the Heroes Day, maybe.
This recent one was the Heroes. That's
yes, I
what
mean,
we are sticking on.
Yeah, because what like you are demanding is literally it's to account for the liberation.
So about the heroes, or you want it rather be interpreted in the same way with taking stock of what you have achieved or otherwise?
Yeah, because it was a popular struggle. It was not an office struggle or academic struggle.
Okay, we shall cross to Mr. Ochieno. You shall take on the same question and find your different approach. How would you have desired Heroes Day to be celebrated? And in any case, do you think it's worth even celebrating?
No, it's a day that the so-called heroes, as presented now, are people who should be in Luzira. Predominantly. We have national heroes. We have national heroes like Uganda's top national hero against Idi Amin is David Owitu.
Yeah.
That's Africa's Lion of War. That is the consensus. Uganda's greatest soldier, backed by the top commander Tito Okello, who unfortunately sort of got lost in this DP and Western and NRA inspired coup of theirs in 1985. So Tito Okello ended up, dying fairly humiliated guy. And I think you'll agree, Vianney, that the Okello that we shall remember is Okello that is struggling to speak English, rather than this semi-illiterate, in terms of Western terms, great commander of.
You mean Tito?
Tito Okello.
Or Basili?
No, Tito actually, not Basilius. So Tito Okello was the overall commander of the liberation movement, but the overall brain was Owitu. So to their credit, so these are great liberation soldiers, where the Musevenis came as branches of this operation. So in military terms, those are the names that should be at the peak of our national liberation from a military perspective. Anything that happened in Luwero was basically criminal, and to date, the Luwero guys have never justified their war.
We have one of them, most likely. In fact, two of them. So they will justify their war.
Sometimes,
much as Mr. Matovu, along with the way he jumped off one day, the queue.
No. Sometimes, to be fair to these guys, I want to sort of stick to the people who strategically at policy level pushed, because many of these people would have been generally very young people. But Vianney, I think Vianney have a good case to answer, but not now. But on a serious note, that is that. Number two, was it a liberation? No. And then number three, this Teresita thing, day of theirs, and
they have Heroes Day, they have
Heroes Day, yeah.
Teresita, they have
I think these
liberation.
These are national days for which, as an economist of sorts, myself, and Museveni alleged as an economist, I think we should marry these days, even if they're all legitimate. I think these days are basically for NRA to chest thump. They're absolutely not necessary. Heroes Day have always been there. They were there from pre the time that these guys came, except Museveni moved it into NRA Terra Heroes Day. So confined it to themselves. Vianney and I, with respect, we were having a conversation, Comrade, which I think you were busy elsewhere during break, where we're having a conversation that on days like these national days, even the budget, it is rather sickening to see NRA turn these national days into local politicized days, even budget days, and I think we're going to be discussing that. So if we went back to heroes, actually, if I was advising Museveni, and he lists 10 of his NRA people whom I say some of them should be in Luzira, and at least makes an effort to show that there are also other Ugandans who genuinely contribute to national liberation. To make it an easy thing. You realize that April the 11th, the most important liberation day since independence, has been now completely pushed off. Nobody talks about April the 11th, the date when Kampala fell against Idi Amin. And it is so simplistic and so obvious that so terribly, unfortunately, we are now having this conversation which have now been very much localized.
The challenge we have
and then finally, if you don't mind, on the question of heroes, other nations, what they do, some of our heroes don't necessarily have to be people who went to the bush or who fought wars. We will have heroes who are possibly doctors, maybe like Dr. Ogwang. When
some have been awarded, people have been.
No, that's true. But I'm emphasizing, you and I, if we went out there and we talk about the most immediate thing, comes military and NRA kind of guys. And then some of our heroes and sheroes are the people who rush in the streets, to rescue maybe a child who's just about to cross the road, or maybe victims of many accidents.
We have
like
no
that.
mechanism
So sort of
through which we can trace
we-
such heroes. Because if I want to award some hero in Luengo, really, who saved someone from drowning, how would I even know?
No,
Is there a process through which we can nominate such people?
No,
And-
no, man, that's unfair. That's unfair to you as a journalist. You guys, the stories you cover, week in and week out, the researches that you do, including your background stuff, stories cumulatively come of exceptional nature. I am just trying to instill
to make,
something on the
to get
mic
it
in our
away
mind.
from the NRA people to a
that
national
indeed
character.
over a 12-month period, there's no way in which, by the way, for the British, sort of to use them as an example, you know, they've got their so-called these the days how they they give knighthood to their people. Some of them they begin to search in communities. So we should be making
There should be a
deliberate
team
efforts.
that goes to the country to nominate names.
Possibly, yes.
Okay, now,
Yes.
the irony in politics and governance, and when it comes to, especially what we are discussing, it becomes tricky to justify some of these things. I quote you saying that one of the biggest heroes you would put on record would be Ochieno.
You should
Have
be.
you bothered to also imagine if we had someone from Amin's regime, do you think he would consider Ochieno a hero?
No, that would be a matter of it. That would be, no.
Because it's like, this is it, Honorable Ochieno. It seems like every regime comes with its heroes and deletes others. That, the perspective you have is that Ochieno should have been one, for instance. Then I wanted to inquire, had we had someone who had been in Amin's regime, he would be literally cursing Ochieno for having even gotten out of power. So how do we treat that? How do I call it? I think do we call it? It's a repugnancy or something. Like we need some bit of consistency. How do we draw that line?
No, man, I've got your point. But in a way, I think that's why this conversation is important, and particularly for your generation. Hopefully, we don't have to go to war to push Museveni and this bunch of power. And the bunch, I mean Museveni and the crude people around him and his regime, and the guys who use X to threaten and to break people's necks. You know, because there are decent people in NRM like Comrade Awich, you know, the many people, you know. But I hope that your generation of leaders who come in, hopefully you'll not have to justify that you fought, or maybe even children of people who fought. Sometimes some of these people invoke those things. That genuinely able to have a nation where this conversation can take place. Let me tell you this. From my scholarly perspective, there is actually no reason why this conversation does not take place, and we go through Idi Amin's regime and critique and see who did or who did not do what. Go through to Milton Obote's government, both of them, and critique who did and did not do what. Why I stick to the 1979 and April the 11th, that is the national consensus, where, to be fair, the majority of Ugandans all came around and rallied around and built that consensus around that. Granted, we should be able to go back to Idi Amin, and in Idi Amin's case, one of Idi Amin's ministers, Obote, I am rehabilitating him now, because turns out, Comrade Awich, that one of the reasons why Amin killed him, and I think for him will know. Minister for Internal Affairs or Defense at the time.
Later, yeah.
He was one of those ones. Apparently, Amin suspected him of working with the Liberation Force, the rebels. And if you go into the details, there's a possibility. And now say that, well, if then that's the case, am I one of those people who are judging all these about the Fumbi because you were ministers in Idi Amin's time? So these are debates we should be able to have, and we're not wasting time on this conversation.
And the way Honorable Awich is, his body language seems to suggest otherwise. And let me take him on as one of the beneficiaries. Honorable Awich, tell the world why should people celebrate the Heroes Day? And maybe you would share with us the criteria through which you heroes are selected, at least. So that we know, what do I need to do? Do I have to wake up in the morning and go to Kampala Road and with a big drum and I get myself a medal?
Hero.
And also maybe in good faith, you could also give us an insight. Why people like Kanyihamba? Okay, there are some names. Just thinking, and you are a lawyer. Counsel, proceed.
Thank you so much. Now, I first want to comment on something you had raised before. That is about the 79 war. There is a lot of literature about the 79 war. I read it and I think I'm among the few people who pretty I've delved inside to understand it. So I do understand it well. Now, Tito Okello was commanding ideally what you would call a unit or a battalion. I don't know whether the Congress, Joseph says he was commanding the overall operation.
Ugandan Liberation Element, I know what you're trying to say. He's talking about the Tanzanian element,
I,
but fair
you
enough.
thought I heard you,
Yeah,
so
fair
you
enough,
hear
yeah.
me also.
Yeah,
I'm trying to
giving you-
leave issues of generous to generous, but it's okay.
Because, you see, when the liberation war started, Amin had attacked Tanzania. So Tanzania had to retaliate, and their retaliation was a decision to fight Amin to the end. So Tanzanians said, okay, we are fighting Amin. Who are the Ugandan volunteers who can join? So there are very many forces, not so many. Please, they were fighting forces. I'm sparing the word very many because when it reached the Mosi conference, Mosi is a town in Tanzania. When eventually Mokapa, by the then Minister of Foreign Affairs, was told by Nyerere to summon all Ugandan forces to meet and decide a possible government after. This is why I had spared the word from the fighting forces, the many. I've spared it for this. Because the accreditation committee was chaired by Professor, who is this OB, from Bushenye, with beard?
Kabwejere.
Kabwejere.
Yeah, sure.
Now, Kabwejere got a lot of difficulty in accrediting people. Because when they realized that there was a possibility of coming back, everybody came with a briefcase.
I also have a
Uganda freedom fighters, Uganda liberation what, Uganda something that, Uganda this. Even people who were forming in the compound, let us go and they accredit us as Uganda liberation something. That is why I had spared the word many forces for so that
to say
conference.
there were very few that were genuine.
Now, the fighting forces, that of Tito Okello and Oyito Jock, who were allied to Bota and UPC, they were called Chikosi Malum. Chikosi Malum means special unit. Chikosi is a unit.
It's a unit,
Malum,
special.
If you want to say a girl is special, you can say Muchana Malum. That is a special girl for your own reason. So Chikosi Malum was a unit, not the overall.
Not an overall.
The overall was a Tanzanian general, Muguru something. Musuguri. The overall was a Tanzanian general. The overall CMI, military intelligence, was Kikwete, who became a president. Kikwete was a colonel, as was the overall CMI. So I don't want this feeling that Tito was overall. Okay? Now, you also had fighting forces like from NASA. Then there was one for Otae and some group who tried to come through.
One for Yona Kanyomo.
Those one came through the east. Now, there were few fighting forces.
Genuine fighting forces.
Yes, but it is true that Chikosi Malum took the middle front. Fronasa took the western. Chikosi Malum took the middle front from Masaka. In Lokaya, they had fleets of blood around. That one was known. Because there was even a talk that the Tanzanians would throw them in front. Would tell them, that the Tanzanians would throw this special unit in the front line, said, you are going back to your country, you go ahead. And indeed, they have that war. To some point, they almost had hand-to-hand fighting in Lokaya. So that is the perspective Oyito Jock is known. Lutwa, amazingly, was above Oyite. Oyite was kind of the number 2. But Oyite was the one in the front. Lutwa remained in Tanzania for a long time. Oyite was in the front with Paul Mwanga. Paul Mwanga was doing the kind of work you could say like Haji Kigongo did in Luela.
Liaison, like a liaisons officer.
But he was putting on combat. He was putting on uniform. But Mwanga was with Oyite in a massacre where Lokaya, Mpiji, up to Kampala. He was in the front line. So I just want to put that perspective. Now, many people think because Chikosi Malum advanced up to entering Kampala and capturing Radio Uganda. Okay? And it was hell of fire throughout, including Lokaya, where there was a destroyed tanks which stayed on the roadside for long. Yes. So that is to the extent that if you agree that 79 was a liberation, then you will have to agree by extension who were the actors. And that is why he imports Oite.
That's why he wants Oite to also get a...
That is why he imports Oite.
medal.
That if you agree it was a liberation, which was agreed. And that is now what brings me the Amin people. The Amin person, if he contends Oite, remember first of all they lost the war. Then if the person who defeated you is not a hero, then why did you lose the war? You lost it to him. So, I just wanted to put that in perspective, that it is to that extent that some people want to import Oite.
Aren't you rather justifying that Oite qualifies to get a medal as a hero? If no or otherwise, what is the criteria? Why would we consider new heroes when there are those in our archives?
The current perspective was at one time by discretionary measures by, say, the president or somebody. But then time came when it was institutionalized by an act of parliament. So I don't know, or there's a committee provided by an act of parliament. I don't know what they consider. I need to look at the law again, what they consider to amount to X getting, Y not getting. And therefore, the one would examine along that parameters provided by an act of parliament. The presumption of an act of parliament is that it's a decision by the whole country.
You see?
So, I don't know now.
Honorable Awich, in a minute or there about, I don't know how I should phrase this. You are answering like that typical senior lawyer. But I'll bring back this question to you. Let us put the law aside. How do you think justifiably heroes ought to be nominated in your view? Just, like, not now by law, in your view, because
that
you
now
are
takes
a lawyer.
me to a concept of a hero. As a concept, what do I think, or what do I know? At a conceptual framework, what should be a hero? Or who should be a hero? And I think at some stage I will remember to pose a question whether medal awardees are actually heroes. Or there's a difference between awardees and heroes. Is it true that whoever gets a medal is a hero?
That question. You're the ones giving out these awards.
So, because even when it is being awarded, they are referred to as awardees. They are not referred to as heroes.
Most of them,
So now, when it is not clear, it can bring us confusion.
But now, an insider in a capacity of Honorable Awich.
That's why I'm saying you now don't have to invite inside element when things are institutionalized. Anyway, to me, a hero is somebody who performs an act. Extraordinary act, which is seen in the eyes of average thinking person or majority, that work deserves a recognition for an exceptional behavior or exceptional act. And this, therefore, being a baseline of definition, it does not only limit people to military. I think the concept of aligning it to military, because the military acts clearly borders life and death. The military acts clear borders life and death. But of course we have had people who have fought Ebola, like Dr. Lokuya, in a hospital ward, being declared heroes. Therefore, it makes us know that heroes are not only military fighters. A hospital a ward doctor who fights Ebola in Gulu, where Ebola was killing people, and he saves a life, and he himself ends up dying.
With the same
even
disease.
if he had survived, he still deserves to be a hero. So that's the definition of a hero, and therefore anybody should be using. And that's why I'm saying, if this is the conceptual framework of a hero, how is it captured in the law?
because a law is supposed to reflect the aspirations of the people. A law is actually a codification.
Guidelines.
A law is a codification. Codification means it is simply put in writing. Otherwise, it is what people already believe, people already love, and people believe it is what is good for a society.
Okay, so, Honorable Awich, it is whispered. It's no longer a whisper, by the way. Now it's public knowledge that even when you have qualified in the public's eye, and at some point you fall out with a big man, there is how your name never appears anywhere. Have you heard of that whisper?
No, I've not.
That's a lawyer in you. Okay, coming back to our viewers, we are here. I have something burning because he has not heard that whisper. I will now whisper to you some of the names, but let's see.
Maj.Rtd.Awich is a lawyer, you know.
You know, that's a lawyer in him, and I started you.
I have a concept which I designed, and I took it to the Solicitor General. Comrade Awich, being a lawyer, knows when that office advises any office must implement. But they wrote to the Honors and Awards Committee. They have never, they gave it a deaf ear.
In fact,
I was commenting on Rukaya.
Where there is that, they wanted to
all
put,
those.
yeah, sure. There were even some names
in Kagera War, in report made by the Tanzanians, it was the most fierce attack in the whole war of Kagera War, because they called it Chipigo cha Rukaya.
Now, with the Chipigo cha Rukaya, we have had Honorable which I know.
The Honors and Awards Committee, or which is within the office of the President, according to the law, the Honors and Awards Act, it is not even considering, and even those who are being awarded, like the doctors, like others, it is not enshrined within that act. They are doing them outside.
We have,
or maybe either by other instruments.
The beauty is that history doesn't lie. We have elsewhere seen General Otafire asking the late now General Tumwini, and he's like, your chest is about to get full of these medals. How do you even get them? The rest of us, it was on record, and he's one of them. And everyone was wondering, if a general within the system complains about the unfair distribution and or awarding of such, you remember, and
displays greediness. Because himself,
don't speak against the dead. So let's let the gentleman rest in peace.
It is not and then he was the master of ceremony. It is as if that when you are serving,
you take your share. Kwanza. Okay. It's like you had something burning, and then we can dive into our budget.
No, I think it's important. We need to decide as a nation, and maybe we need to come back to this topic, or for heroism, because the context within which I was bringing this was very much in good faith, including about contextually writing history. Comrade Awich has got information and has read these things. I have the privilege of having a full authority in this group as the Uganda People's Congress, as the political party, that fast, as early as 1971, immediately after the coup, started preparations for countering Idi Amin with the organized working of Julius Nyerere. Museveni hugely, substantially benefited from that as part of an organized group led by Milton Obote. Kikosi Maalum, by the way, in fact, was not formed in 1978 or 78. Kikosi Maalum started as an early and indeed to call an operation unit. That's why we're discussing events that took place here in 1974.
We shall...
No, but when I just to conclude, it's 1974, the infiltrations into Uganda, because these are units operating within a sovereign Tanzania, a sovereign Uganda with Idi Amin. I'm just putting these things in context. And finally, of course, Vianney is talking about Lukaya thing. Museveni very deliberately took the Western Axis. And again on record that Museveni took the Western Axis not to fight, but to recruit for something that we eventually saw here in the war. Yes, indeed, the Tito Kelos and others were Ugandan liberation forces as part of a combined Ugandan Tanzanian liberation forces. So we need to decide, because Tanzania was the overall commanders, does it mean that Ugandans we should play second fiddle? But of course, NRA, when it comes to playing second fiddle, they play Pineti, they play Roku, but they forget about ourselves.
Thank you for your views. Our viewers, we are streaming live on our Facebook page, that's the Alternative Uganda, and also YouTube. Send in your comments. I want to believe that our guests will, without fear or favor, like how people swear, answer your questions. Send them the way they are. Gladly, we have two retired army officers. We have amidst them someone who is still complaining that they took the bread away from his hands.
Bambi.
He's even having the Bambi now.
Yeah.
We are going into the topical discussion, and I want to kindly ask you to pay attention about our theme. When General Museveni and the team were at Kololo on Thursday with the Minister of Defense and the entire Parliament and so many other guests, prior to that, they accepted to construct their theme for our budget of Thursday last week as full monetization of Uganda's economy through commercial agriculture, industrialization, expanding and broadening services, digital transformation, and market access. Simple words, simple English for all of us to understand. Now, I should begin with the mother of Honorable Awich. I'm beginning with you.
Yes.
The mother of this statement. Your mother of this statement, kindly. Do you think this budget can achieve, as the statement suggests,
Read the keywords again, what you have just read.
full monetization of Uganda's economy as number one? But they do this through commercial agriculture. And I think this would be also important for you to take home, that the budget of the money allocated to agriculture as a sector does not speak to this opening word. Kindly proceed, do you think, given the figures?
Yeah, I think it does. Maybe we are not seeing it as a holistic item, in that we are thinking that it must be agriculture, and therefore agriculture should save. Should achieve that. The holistic nature I'm saying here is that if you don't give money to agriculture, as you read in the budget, but you give money to PDM, in effect, the productivity that you get through PDM will mainly, or in most cases, since we have agricultural background, will go into agriculture. So while you have not seen money enter agriculture directly, but it has gone to. So that's why I'm saying to see it from a holistic point of view, not agricultural point of view. And therefore, commercial production, to achieve commercial production, to have monetization of the economy, you don't need to put the resources which will generate commercial agriculture in the Ministry of Agriculture. You can put it through, like PDM is under Ministry of Local Government. So you have put money through Ministry of Local Government, but the money which will engender or generate commercial production. And once you have engaged in commercial production, in other words, the emphasis here is that rather than produce for consumption, which is ideally subsistence economy, producing for your consumption, once you are produced for commercial, then you are entering the money economy, the money market. Therefore, it is possible to achieve that even when we have not seen in what he was fearing the mandate
the money has not entered the mandate of agriculture. In this case, the money has actually entered the mandate, of local government. The money has entered the mandate of local government. So it's a holistic design that many other areas and sectors are involved, but with the end product of commercial agriculture or monetization.
I have this for you, and I will ask our two panelists to give us these means so that you exhaustively give the public what is expecting of you, the mothers of this budget. And we have a few minutes, I think like 4 or so, to go to a break, and I don't want to interfere with some of the questions I have for you. You see, Honorable Awich, when you look at agriculture, even by its term, you can't do agriculture minus land. There's no way. And when you look at the problems, apparently one of the basic problems now in this country is about the land question. So how do you monetize, for instance, the economy through commercial agriculture? Because commercial agriculture in itself, in my basic interpretation, calls for maybe large-scale farming, or to mention but a few. Remember, Uganda has, and I think you have also so many times discouraged people to fragment their land. But then, the machinery at the parish levels or sub-county levels aren't there. Some places where there are tractors, my dear, tires are deflated. Are you intentional in regards to ensuring that there is commercial agriculture in this country? First of all, you have said it is also okay to push the money into local government ministry. But then, isn't that confusion in itself? I want money for agriculture. How will I now run to local government ministry now to run for PDM?
You have asked many questions in one, but I want to stick to what you had initially wanted to ask. You had wanted to ask about how are you going to do commercial agriculture when there's a land challenge.
Land question.
So I wanted to stick to the challenge of land question. Of course, a country will not expand land. You can't expand land. We have to use the land that we have. You're not going to expand the square meters or kilometers that we have. But I think you also tend to think that commercial agriculture is equivalent to large scale. It may not be large scale. Commercial agriculture can be large scale for those who do large scale, but also many people producing the same thing and collect. For example, milk. Milk, you don't need to be in big farm to be commercial milk, because whichever some small producers, there is always people who pass picking. And same thing can be for tomatoes. If so many people are producing tomatoes, it can be picked. Same thing with the pineapple or what. So many people producing for sale is the core point and can be collected. Some lorries or whichever vehicle will always be there to collect them, to bring them into a bulk. Therefore, it can be done even in small production. But the question of land has remained a challenging thing. I don't know whether you ever dare to know, and for those of us who read the Karl Marx philosophy, we are used to this, that material conflict is over. Conflict is over materiality, especially land. For example, in CA, during CA in the constitution making, people ideally would be divided over whether you want movement or multi-party. Movement or multi-party. It was easy to see. But did you know that in the evening, when it came to question of land, these people who are divided over movement or multi-party, when it came to protecting the land, they would be caucusing together. They would be together, whether you are Cecilia Gwal or whichever diehard NRM, as long as they were landowners. And that defeated the position in CA to the extent that CA simply pushed the land question ahead. It was tactically pushed that it will be dealt with, because it was the only point of convergence. But anyhow, Land Act was passed, and right now, procedures are that land should be to the tillers. And one way of providing land to the tillers is a land fund compensation, for example, for absentee landlords. There are those who own chunks of land, but they don't use it, and yet they are ordinary people. That, of course, has its inherent challenges. How judiciously are we using the land fund? There's sentiments and cries about abuse and misuse of it. But that is one way of giving land to the tillers. The other aspect is to encourage non-splitting, of course, as you say. And the other aspect, to strengthen land law in the districts, area land committee, or even the district land board. I'm chairman of the district land board in my district. And we try to make sure that the land is properly used. And also, in some areas, because of the increased population and the small land and constant use, there's also call for fertilizers. So a lot is being done about land, including the use of fertilizers. So I have mentioned many.
With fertilizers, we are coming back, and you justify what people are facing. I have heard of late, you spray a tick, it gains weight.
That is not fertilizer.
No, I mean, I'm trying to give you some of the examples.
So what I'm saying is, farmers. The land question is that among the solutions is land fund compensation of land tillers, strengthening the district land regulatory system, including land board and land committees, in areas of less of fertility, using of fertilizers, but also the production of small holders, but with a view of commercializing, so that when you produce many, these items are collected, so that you run away from the view that for me to sell milk in Nyamshozi, I must have 100. No, you can even have 20 or 10, and yet you're doing it commercial, and you're paying school fees from that milk. And you are doing many things from that milk for commercial basis.
In short, you are convinced that this will work. Our viewers, we are coming back shortly with, of course, Mr. Vianney Ngoma, Matovu, and also Joseph Ochieno to analyze and or what Honorable Awich Pollar has just alluded to. Don't go away.
Oh, clearly explained.
Oh, okay. Clearly explained. Like he says, okay. We're coming back shortly.
The Alternative Dig Talk. Real issues, real talk.
Hi Rogers, can I ask you something?
Shoot.
What does corruption mean?
Well, summarily, corruption is abuse of public power for personal gain or for the benefit of a group to which one owes allegiance. For example, when a public office is abused by an official accepting or soliciting a bribe. By the way, private people can be corrupt too, like bribing police officers to escape fines.
Okay. So exactly how does that concern me?
Well, do you pay taxes?
I guess, yeah. What does that have to do with this?
Everything. Because those taxes you pay are supposed to facilitate services you use, like water, electricity, roads construction, medicines in hospitals, name it.
Okay, that is much bigger than I thought. But it can be stopped, right?
Well, yes it can, although it may not be as easy as it sounds. And here is the reason why. Corruption roots are grounded in our country's social, political, economic, bureaucratic traditions and policies.
So, what has kept it going this long? I mean, why don't we stop it?
Well, the main reason why it has been here for so long is because institutions are weak, either as a result of poorly defined ethical standards of public service, weak administrative and financial systems, or ineffective watchdog agencies.
What can we do to stop it?
At a national level, we must focus on strengthening the independence and effectiveness of public institutions that fight corruption. At a personal level, we must commit to never giving a bribe.
I promise I'll never give a bribe.
Well, that's a great decision you have made. Me and you now have to spread this message to all our friends. If we all do our part, corruption will be no more.
This message is brought to you by Alternative Digital.
The Alternative Digital. Real issues, real talk.
You're welcome, our viewers. My name is Norman Tumuhimbise, sitting in here to moderate the Hotline Show with the three panelists that we have here. Each one of them brings a different perspective of what we are discussing. In particular, we're trying to dissect our national budget's theme to ensure that our ordinary citizens can have what indeed this theme means. Is it pro-people or pro-NRM? Is it pro-external, do we say, the West? Because that's another word. So, Mr. Matovu, you have heard the theme of our budget, but what is more important is that monetization of Uganda's economy, even if we stopped there. So this budget aims at monetizing our economy. Do you think it is possible to monetize our economy? And if yes, what do you think they mean?
Words have been inherited to catch and amuse the public. Let us go to the practice.
The reality, on ground.
On ground, Parliament approved an appropriation of buying hose to the citizens. I don't know whether that practice of giving hose is commercial agriculture, is monetization. And they are even giving hose to my comrade, the veterans, through the Ministry of Rural Triumph.
Giving someone, giving a hose, someone aged 60.
This is Parliament targeting come 2016.
You seem to suggest that Parliament has lost touch.
With overhauling things. This originated from Parliament.
This theme.
They are the ones brings those readings. Because now the budget, they come with a word, State of Nation Address, addressing Parliament, giving accountability to Parliament. And if you can bring the communication of the speaker, you can learn more of what you are questioning us about. Because herself, greatly in addressing and observing the protocol, where the president is supposed to give an accountability, was his rhyme or her rhyme. Not so. So, let us not take the words. Let's go to Paris development model. Paris development model is miraculously monetizing because they give one person 1 million within a shortest period with 6 cows. With 10 goats. That kind of accumulation of wealth is miraculous. Let us be sincere and practical.
Are you contesting the fact?
Not on aggrandizement.
Are you contesting the fact that there are beneficiaries, genuine beneficiaries of parish development model?
Whether genuine or not.
Who turned 1 million into 6 cows in 1 year?
In philosophy, we have what we call content and form. Now we are getting form, not content. You go and study that in the rules of dialectics. Content and form. Now we are having the form. The form is appetizing. The content, lamenting. So when you want to whether you are who or not who, what is proper is to behave like Africans and Ugandans. In Ugandan philosophy, they say that a mechanic put his mechanical workshop on the road to be advised, not to aggrandize himself that he's a technical. The problem is now the class we have, the schooled elitism, which is a syndrome, is to aggrandize themselves. Those in commercial agriculture, if you are going to do the research, they are not those who went to agricultural schools, many of them. But now the technicals are the schooled.
And the NADS, what?
NADS.
Mention. Okay.
Now, NADS, you have given the best example, which is giving us where we are going to, which is giving us the best reading and mapping. Why there arose an advent of rationalization, if these things are proper.
I have a brief, a summary of
why do we have rationalization?
Some of the highlights. The Minister of Finance stated that poverty decreased from 24.5% to 16.1% in the. How do you feel? How's your pocket? Because that's one of, because that's how you tell that we are moving forward.
School, when you go in the faculty of statistics at the university, they are the ones calculating this.
You don't feel the money in the pocket?
By logarithms. They calculate, you go to the logarithm, they get figures.
Okay.
Even the BCom members in the Makerere University can calculate billions, whereas they can't accrue a single.
Let's begin with that statement,
this is not
Mr. Ochieno. To be specific, the gentleman said that our poverty has decreased from 24.5% to 16.1%. That's a big thing. How?
It would be big if it were real. I have done some economics. Although my economics is modest, sometimes I wonder what economics the Minister for Finance, Kasaija and Museveni did. And Museveni did substantive economics at university. And you realize that I always refer to that very deliberately, because the economics I did and the economics I know and the commerce I did primarily average O-level commerce. And my own personal lived experience does not relate to the realities of the Minister of Finance and Mr. Museveni. So it's not surprising that
what are the basics through which you detail that the economy, okay, people have some bit of money?
I'm coming to that. Someone who knows Mr. Museveni slightly better than me here would tell you that, well, maybe the guys at the Department of Statistics may be rather quite busy. No, if you basically look at the spends alone on the national budget, you don't have to be an economist to know that if you're prioritizing agriculture, and particularly if you're prioritizing industrialization and agro-industrialization, how much spends you give in this financial year in terms of priority. So that's the emphasis, which I think initially was your question to us and include Maj.Rtd.Awich. But most importantly, you then have to look at the graph, even if it is done by statisticians. Last year's financial year, agriculture took 1.6 trillion. That is as part of our big campaign, and 1.6 trillion is still petty money to a sector that until the other day contributed to 90% of the economy. In other words, 70% of the population, the Ugandan population, I'm still coming to the numbers of people,
yeah, sure,
are involved not only in agriculture, but a predominant number of those are in subsistence agriculture. That includes the smallholders that Maj.Rtd.Awich was talking about. Now, the average economist, in fact, particularly the average statistician, will pick Sudir, with a trillion shillings in his pocket, one man, one family, with some of the money that we give him that Semuju asked, we wonder what is special about the guy. Add the number for Sudir, added the number that we given to Peniti, add the number that we given to that dubious woman in
They showed us a hospital to 60%.
Add those numbers, as personalities here. I'm talking about personalities. Okay, granted, you could talk about Rocco as a company, But you take up Roko and then you bring in this case, return Sudir. Multiply it, rather divide it by the number of citizens in Uganda, and you pick Sudir's average. So Sudir's average is basically what you say relates to the average living of a Ugandan in Nagongera. I argued, I think, on this floor, I don't know whether it was on your programs some times ago, that when I look at this I take Nagongera as a whole, and Nagongera as a whole. Mr. Museveni is even going to grant us a municipality, having failed to do the roads that UPC was supposed to have done 40 years ago, but it's going to be given as a municipality. So if I look at Nagongera municipality and the citizens, indigenous citizens who were there before, I'll ask how many of them are relatively employed, how many of them who are employed are earning a basic minimum wage. The basic minimum wage of, that UPC set in 1984 today should really be about 780,000 Uganda shillings. Now, even if you reduce that by half, talk about how many people in Nagongera earn half that amount, half the minimum wage that UPC set at the time. That's even minus inflation, just the figures, to the price cost. Then you take standard of living, average living conditions. How many people in my average Nagongera will have access to basic health today? How many people, children in Nagongera will go to average Nagongera primary school and be able to compete in average primary school and then go to entire school? How many average Nagongera children have got access to basic water, have got access to electricity? How many people are living on an average 3,000 Uganda shillings per day? And then you realize that the budget as presented, the figures that Kasaija gives, does not reflect anything to the reality of Nagongera. And Nagongera is not amongst the poorest parts of the country, by the way. It's not amongst the poorest parts of the country. So then you wonder, Mr. Kasaija's number, as miraculous as it refers, as the Mabatis that can fly behind his garden, as he claimed that Karamoja Mabati found themselves in his place. What you're asking is this: if we're giving priority to agriculture, you want to be able to ask how many average smallholders at initial stages are supported, and what are the support? Extension workers. What are support? Access to market. What are support? And the fact that this guy is able to guarantee themselves in terms of sustainability in agriculture. Then from there you very quickly take me from Nagongera and Tungamo, and you take me to Abim, where I follow some people because I go around the country.
Okay.
And you find Abim as a district, one of the most fertile places in the country. And people, during this campaign season, people are talking about how many tractors are there for access for people to farm. But beyond the tractor thing, people are talking security. And beyond the security, people are talking for the fact that there are Balalo who are there who are buying land and basically trying to claim territory in those places. The same thing is happening in northern Uganda. How we are going to do this agro-industrialization, I don't know. If we are saying that we want a few individuals in Uganda to be Sudir, a few individuals in Uganda to be Salim Saleh, a few individuals in Uganda to have 10 farms and to do this commercial kind of stuff, then yes, we shall grow an economy, play an average, but when it comes to the disparity between the few very rich and the poorest majority, it will be, and that will be okay. Except the average figures that you refer still cannot apply. So therefore, the numbers that you talk about, the 16%, is as suspicious and as dubious as anything else that can take a Mabati over a fence of a minister for finance.
If you are still crying over the numbers, I want also to add this some other highlight. In our budget on Thursday, as read and presented by Honorable Kasaija, he went ahead to say that by and large, 91% of the Ugandans walk only 5 kilometers. It's a radius of just 5 kilometers to find a health center. No, this is what he said. It's on record. 91% walk. Okay, literally, it's a radius of simply 5 kilometers. How is Nagongera? Or how is Tororo?
This is crazy. Kasaija sometimes can be quite insulting, but I understand he's an entire OB, and is an ally to Museveni. So I think he should behave slightly better than that. Look, that one that is actually nonsense. But then number two, even in the likely event that happens, and even in the very likely event that those numbers happen, Nagongera, we are reasonably urbanized. By the way, in Nagongera, we are quite privileged that we have Nagongera Health Facility, which is a health center.
So you literally, you even move less than 5
Yeah, because I want to be as realistic as possible, because some of them I don't want to be unscientific, because I don't want to give unfair figures that I don't know about other areas. For argument's sake, if you talk about Nagongera, talk about 5 kilometers, that may be possible. But in any case, what the UPC government did in Nagongera and Padola, UPC government built health centers in every sub-county. So with the extreme, some of the additions that ended as both health center 1 or 2, it is actually possible, and I'm turning it around, that happens. The issue then is, are they ghost houses or are they health facilities? As I said, what I can tell you of my sub-county and what I can tell you of my Tororo side of the district, there is nowhere you will go today and there's no health facility you go tomorrow and you'll get treated for malaria at a health facility. There is nowhere you will go without money and you get treated for the most basic, even if it's basically flu and fever. Now, if those are the figures that Kasai is talking about, he was talking about quantitative economics and qualitative economics.
Maybe
and there's the thing.
In a minute, because I want to also pose the same to Honorable Awich. He went ahead to say that now people who can access safe water, he mentioned 57,951 out of 71,225 safe water. How is the
those villages? I don't
no homes homes. So I do not know how safe is your water, because it seems like you are a beneficiary of the basic.
Are you saying there are only 7,000?
No. He said in comparison to the 2010-2011 statistics. No. So he mentions 57,951.
It can't be, because I can tell you that.
And we shall give you the soft copy of the
Yes, and I can tell you that, and it's very, very difficult, because when we're having this conversation, by the way, when it comes to matters of the budget, those are things that should not necessarily be partisan.
Yeah, of course.
We should be able to have a very fair, open and objective conversation, including to say that. That's why I told you that when it comes to the distance thing of 5 kilometers, I can say that with a disclaimer, that actually when I look at Nagongera and the neighboring areas, the then existing health facilities before these guys came from the bush alone, were possibly 6 kilometers or thereabout. So if you find some of those that are spotted, it is possible that can apply to our place. Then the issue is qualitative.
You were a few. Uganda's population was manageable. Now we have over.
That means then
that's what they always bring on board.
That means UPC did very, very well at the time. My point was every sub-county had health facility. So meaning that figures can work and the issue is about quality. But then when it comes to question of water, I have water in my home, but water that I brought myself. And in my neighborhood, I don't know how many families have got access to water thanks to government.
In fact, safe water.
Safe water, thanks to
Okay, let's run to Honorable Awich. I want to take you back to, in case you didn't pay attention to the statistics. The gentleman talked of the radius of 5 kilometers to access a health center in the budget. How is Langwa sub-region in terms of health care? At least let's speak from now from our foundation. How is Langwa sub-region in particular? Was he speaking truth, only but truth, or politics?
I'm trying to see my sub-county to see whether true or false.
5 kilometers radius. And he says it's 91%, by the way, of the population who have that radius of 5 kilometers.
I think it is true, because I'm seeing in my place, there is Odahomet, now from Odahomet to Kormo, and if you divide in the whole sub-county, I think that radius is fitting, because there's one health center in Odahomet, and there's another health center in Okoromo, and if you see the radius in the sub-county, I think it fits.
Are they operational, in your view? Are they operational? Are they equipped or simply?
They are working.
Equipped?
They are working.
Stocked?
Of course, equipment, you can't say enough. It's like money. Even if you are as equipped as what is this hospital in Nairobi we go to?
Aga Khan.
I'm sure Aga Khan in their boardroom, they are still crying for something which is missing. So it's not really enough to say.
Aga Khan cannot compare with Mulago
no,
in
what
our
I'm
time.
saying is that every hospital unit at whatever level, something is missing. Something is, even Mulago, something will always, but whatever it is now, it is there. So I think that is it. But I also want to dwell on the question of poverty.
Which reduced it to 16.1 from 24. That's a huge success.
You see, that there's some element of economic figures that keep confusing people. Like if you talk of GDP or GNP,
you are closing an ordinary citizen out of the discussion.
For a start, for a gross domestic product, for example, if we say, and put it even in the average,
you put it average
per person, it may look high, and sometimes people don't see it reflected on the table. Why? One of those categories is that you measure the total production in a country. For example, if we were making tanks, military tanks, and military bullets and bombs, which is produced in the country, you value each bullet would cost how much, each tank would cost how much, each member would cost. Now that money is put as total production and added. You can even divide that, if this is what we are producing, you divide by person. But you'll realize that some of those production are not directly consumable. Okay, it generates money, but the money may not even be directly going to the people. So that is a confusion that brings in a lot in economics. But I think in the poverty, the poverty is done in a way that is clear to understand.
How is your region?
The poverty average, typically, it is calculated by establishing a poverty line, which represents the minimum income needed to afford basic necessities. For example, the minimum income needed to afford salt, sugar, majani, kaunga, okay?
Yeah.
Now, this line is then compared to household income to determine the proportion of the population living. That want to say we have reduced to this, okay? So this is calculatable figures. This is it is achievable, it is simple that you can do that and calculate it. And therefore, by my good old boy of Ntare School, Mr. Kasaija, pronouncing himself, he would have used this. It's not a rocket science. This is not rocket science. So, unlike the GDP, which calculates everything.
Honorable Awich,
yes.
With due honesty, when you are going back home, especially during the day, because at night you can't ascertain what is happening in this city. In fact, even at night you can. What do you think would make someone, because you have had people say, and it's on record, if we were to even drive slowly, you know, people can walk, people walk from Kampala to far ends towards even Entebbe, ahead of Kajansi, where then you find people, you know, like they are, as if they are martyrs, up to Nansana. Do you feel that there is some bit of people are living relatively?
You see, if you are going to reduce some of this judgment by an eye, by looking at it,
so should we close our eyes towards those are walking horse or sleeping hungry?
You're going to make gross mistake. That is why I'm telling you.
Guide us on what do we use.
So if you're going to look at it, what would you say, for example, of a person who is walking from town to Nansana, when yesterday he actually got an income of 500,000 that went to a bar and the prostitute stole it? So this is what I'm warning. Why am I giving this example? I'm warning you against using your eyes as opposed to a scientific approach of assessing.
You want me to close my eyes?
No,
and assume there is no
I'm giving you the guideline. This is not rocket science.
And
This is not rocket.
How many people do you think?
Someone did not see that incident.
This is not rocket science. This is not rocket science. Because if you look by your eye, you're not going to see this man who actually got 500 and
and the wife is quarreling
So
with him.
are you convinced?
Okay?
Are you
The wife
convinced?
is saying, you man. Listen, the wife is saying, you man, you got 500,000 yesterday. Now you have nothing. Now you are using the same man to say, you see, they are walking.
You see,
They are walking.
you are making this show.
And yet you have a scientific way, a scientific approach by saying, by establishing poverty line, which represents the minimum income needed for basic needs. We know the minimum income. Look, stop at that. How much is a kilo of salt? Okay? First of all, list the necessities. Salt, sugar, food, medical, whatever education. Those are the necessities. So you get the minimum income. What is that income needed for this? Then you then compare to how much is this household receiving, everything. In other words, does the amount needed to meet this income comparable to the income? Then you go to check this income, this household, what did you get this month? Or what do you get this month? What do you get this year? So this is not rocket science. But for you want us to use our eye or anybody walking, not knowing that this man yesterday actually got his 1 million, went to Anjenwa, is now working on food. Now you want us to believe
as our viewers continue watching this show, I want to be very clear to you, Honorable Awich, and our viewers. We shall continue using our eyes to judge
which is wrong.
What we are seeing.
Which is wrong.
But that aside, this is to me, Honorable Awich. As a student of literature, I'm going to put a hyphen between the word IN hyphen COME to stand for income. Income. The money coming in. In a country with close or over 70% unemployed population, where is that income coming from? Before you say someone got his 500 and a prostitute took it. Because I want to justify that by and large, what people say and what we see, because we can't run away from seeing. We see people hungry, we see people not eating, we see people eating once a whole day, and what do they eat in any case? Kakomando. They reduce it to add KA to make it very, very, very small. Kakomando. It used to be Chikomando. Why wouldn't you allow us to use our eyes? But I also saw it coming that you would defend your hobby. Okay, let's proceed. Where do you think the money, that income comes from, if you want to defend it? Honorable Awich.
Now, you are talking of unemployment in Uganda, okay? Now, you are talking of unemployment
there are some various
in
reports.
Uganda.
Let me hear your report.
So, what do you say is the unemployment rate in
You're going to
Uganda?
challenge your figures.
You are talking of 70%.
You're going to
Fact,
challenge
could
your
even
figures.
be more.
No, here
By the
the
way,
data that we have is 2.9%.
Oh dear Lord. 2 as in 2.9.
Yes.
Like
You see,
seriously?
let's first talk. I think we are talking from different sides of the
Most
globe.
likely, because you
For
see,
example, your definition of unemployment or your definition of employment, the way I'm looking at you, are people putting on ties and coats.
next time we'll not have a coat, but still.
The
what I'm saying.
employment, in other words, for you, you're completely cutting off people employed in agriculture. You're completely cutting off somebody in Agago who is employed in the farm, in his farm. You're completely cutting off somebody in Nyamshozi looking after his cows with milk. Your term of employment, why you are put it to 70%, because you don't see people working to offices. That is not unemployment.
This is the point, Honorable Awich.
That is not unemployment.
In a second, Honorable
on
Awich.
record, unemployment is 2.9. Now, where you are getting your 70 from is because your definition of employment
is different from
are
what
people in public service.
Parliament
Employment is not people in public service.
This is the point, Honorable Awich.
Employment are people
When-
involved in gainful work.
Wonderful.
Anybody involved in gainful work is employment. Please remove the concept of employment in public service.
Let me defend
white collar job. No.
Let me defend
on
that.
record. Check.
Let me defend the unemployment. In simple terms, much as you barred me from using my eyes, I will continue using them.
Do you still want to maintain unemployment 70%?
With this reason, when you avoid me to use the eyes and the rest of the members, when we look at our colleagues walk in and out of the city, it is as if you are communicating that every 100 people we see, on 98 point something are employed. And you see, our being here is to help guide the country to ensure that we have policies that shape all of us. So are you honest when you say we are simply 2 point
You see,
rate of unemployment in this country?
If I was to come up with my own judgment, it would be so unfair to our viewers.
Yeah, sure.
And that is why I do consult.
Whose report is that? So that we can have it for references.
This report
we shall
is
have,
here.
Yeah, so,
So
that
if we are to use our own sentiments,
because it could be a government report, it could be some NGO report, and we maybe we need to. Of course, next Monday we shall. When we open, we should have such substantiated. Honorable Ochieno.
Here it is.
We shall have.
If we are to use our own sentiments and our own definition, which already tell you that your definition of employment is
a tie and a quote, not
because
really,
your employment is public service, office employment, white collar job. So for you, as long as somebody is not in a white collar job, is not putting on a tie, is not employed.
Not really.
That is not true.
Okay?
So,
in a minute.
So now, therefore, if you say that employment as a wider definition, and if you agree by this figure that unemployment is 2.5, therefore, the poverty baseline that was used, because it is just using two things. One, what is needed in a household? Food, or education, health, clothing. Okay, that is one. Two, then they go to what is the income of this. If they find Ochieno's household is below that, that is below poverty line. If it goes to Matovu's, what is the income in this house? That is above. Yours, of course, you are above. Then that is what it is. So it is not rocket science. It is not rocket science. It is just what does a household need, how much does it cost, vis-a-vis what is the income of this household.
Honorable,
that determines poverty line.
I am giving you a minute because you are very key in on this panel, because you represent a whole government in our view. By and large, and we don't doubt that. Would you still remain fair to let the country believe that our unemployment rate is at simply 2%? 2.9. Would you justify that a country that has close to 97% of its population working lives the way it lives? Because it would mean people are busy, people are earning, so why would such people be poor when they are working?
You are moving in a circle.
No.
You are moving in a circle
because Uganda is underdeveloped. That is factual. But with a population of 97% working, do these two statements match?
You are moving in circle because first of all you are saying if it is 2.9% employed.
Yeah.
And then
going by
the poverty line, we said it reduced to 16?
They said 16.1.
So you are saying
24.
Why are they living in poverty? When you already know that it has been reduced to that extent. Okay? So what you are seeing using your eyes, it's not agreeable.
Let's take it.
It's not agreeable because there are people who have worked from door to door to do this study, to ask questions, to ascertain the income of a household. And the same people have moved to check the cost of matoke, the cost of milk, the cost of bread, and they have added it, and they have asked household. Why do you want you to believe by your sentimental belief in what is happening? Therefore, the data is not lying. Remove from your mind your definition of employment. Take it that Ugandans are employed in various sectors, not only offices.
Let me hear
and their income is coming there too.
Let me hear Mr. Joseph Ochieno's mind. We have literally, as per the submissions of Maj.Rtd.Awich, 2.9 only are unemployed. What's your take?
And you indeed suggested that, according to Comrade Awich,
with the report that he has,
when we take the average, we pick 100 people in the streets of Kampala,
Yes.
that only 2 of them will be unemployed. And Comrade Awich has got a specific...
No, this is a country, not Kampala.
By the way, I picked Kampala.
You see why you are not
Kampala
picking
is a-
Kampala? Because you know what an average means. An average, for example, if you went to, say, Nyamushozi, those who are employed in cattle keeping, you're going to get 100% employed. Are you now going to say Uganda is 100%? So the city has a perpetual problem of people migrating to urban areas. And therefore it poses that. So you don't pick a city. You don't pick a city.
The basic...
If the wrong way of picking a city would be the same wrong way you'll pick Nyamushozi. And you say Nyamushozi is 100, therefore Uganda is 100. Don't pick a city.
Yeah, let me guide this discussion.
This is an average not of a city. It is an average of the country.
You see, Council.
An average of the country, not an average of a city.
A second, Mr. Ochieno and the Council Awich Pollar. You see, back in the day when we were even trying to study the reasons for which people migrate from their villages is unemployment. You said people in the villages are employed. Why would they come back to cities?
Fully employed.
Why would they come to cities?
Some don't want that kind of employment.
Okay, yes, answered now.
Some people sell away their cows and come
for
because they don't prefer that employment. He has 50 cows. He feels in his mind it is not the employment he wants. He sells it and comes.
Mr. Ochieno, begin from there.
You know, I was going to attempt to make it very easy for Comrade Awich.
To take a sample of a city to represent Uganda? No.
You know, Comrade Awich, you're a lawyer.
Yeah, he's
But
answering
I am content to be referred to qualitatively as an economist, amongst others. And I think Norman helps us with the definitions of urban rural migrations. Again, something which, of course, NR has blocked civics, but these are things that people learnt in the senior 3, particularly senior 2, 3, if they were going to good schools of those days, which, of course, now have been privatized and only they belong to Sudhir and a few private guys in town. Look, I was saying that I picked Kampala, that Kampala has got much more likely higher level for employment than some other cities. Over 100 people in Kampala, 2. Then you go to my village in Nagongera, and I'll stick to Nagongera, yeah? That 100 people in Nagongera, you pick 100 people in Nagongera, and only 2 are unemployed. Because according to Comrade Awich, you know, these guys have got cows. Comrade Awich thinks that people in Nagongera, in Abim, in Atiak, all of them have got cows like those was in Kazo, which one cow is 10 million Uganda shillings. That is actually not true. By the Comrade Awich, Nagongera is slightly a better off place statistically with evidence than some other place in Aloy, in a part of Lango. And again, I want to refer to Abim today for some reason, I don't know why, and maybe even a particular section part of Toro. So if I see Nagongera, my own community, my own relative urbanized community, you know, the idea that 10% unemployment applies to Nagongera is actually not true. But you know, we are playing with these figures because much earlier, Comrade Awich did not conclude the conversation of how, in this NRA budget, we are going to turn agricultural sector into an aspect of the economy which is going to be sufficiently commercialized, and so therefore turn the livelihood of the people that Comrade Ngoma is talking about. It is actually unsustainable. You can move between Tororo and Nagongera today, yeah, and you will not find one single clear acre of land where they say 1 acre of land maize, 1 acre of land cassava, 1 acre of land granules. And if you find one, you know, I'll be on the wrong, but there will not be 3. It is not what I grew up with. Because when I grew up with, what I grew up with, every household had this. This thing is dead. Now, that is the same in Nagongera, is the same even in the predominantly much more well-endowed places with land like Lango and Echoli. They don't exist. What these guys are talking about are a few privileged people, the Sudhirs plus the Balalo, who have access to money and then go and do commercial farming and talk about this thing that we're going to commercialize this thing because we want to make sure that a few people, some of them are actually lawyers, but they're doing farming. Some of them are doctors, they're doing farming. Some of them are sons and sons-in-laws of a few privileged generals, and they're doing farming. Those are the things these guys are trying to talk about. You add those figures, Kasaija adds it, and then they say Ugandans, okay. No, Maj.Rtd.Awich, Ugandans are going to bed hungry. And the proportion of Ugandans who are going to bed hungry are actually not less than 16%. Proportion going to bed hungry, forget about poverty. Now, if you go into the details, today, Maj.Rtd.Awich, you and I were supposed to have met for tea so that we discussed Uganda outside the studios, you know? And at the traffic lights in Kampala, this lady comes to me with the Bible, you know? And unusually, I decided to lower down a little bit the thing, and I teased her a bit. And then as I talked to her, and then she says, oh, Jesus loves you, God loves you. And then as I was going, she said, I'm just leaving her like that. I suddenly realized that this woman was terribly hungry. I actually didn't know these guys who carry also those things. It's also one of the many other ways in which surviving. And when I looked, you know, I had already just moved on because she looked like she was also very thirsty, you know. Now, that is in Kampala, and she did not look amongst the poorest. Now, as you know, we've been discussing this subject on various networks over the last week or two. I was seated in a panel like this with a very senior national colleague of ours, and I think the person was genuinely right to say that, look, even for this social class, once in a while, we don't have fuel, and this happened to me. Even for us, once in a while, we do not have money to provide for our families in the evenings. I don't know the experience of my two colleagues, but I know families who are. And finally, I want to say this. I have had an experience within the last 10 months where a young mother, who's a teacher, a young mother, and I'll just take the profession, who's a teacher, called me at 11 o'clock at night, last call of that evening, telling me that their children were going to sleep hungry. And the following day, because when I saw it and I didn't have a particular close relationship with this individual, it was the following day that I called, and the individual told me that no, my children slept hungry. And I sent them 30,000 Uganda shillings. Now this is somebody who is working here in Kampala. The second child is an adopted child. Very special individual, by the way, out there in town. One of these people, so-called working. Now, whether or not you're telling me that this woman is living below the poverty line, I don't know. Miracles have to happen to take Mabati over and above Kasaija's.
Thank you. Let me cross to Mr. Vianney Ngoma Matovu. Pick the discussion from there. Unemployment, how do you see it?
Let us not chase shadows. In entrepreneurship, they are calling them dreams. That's the terminology they are using. When you are pushing things with dreams, that is a total failure. You have skyrocketed everything to the God's mercy. In Uganda Investment Authority, the criteria for allowing an investor in Uganda, you have to assure this nation that you are going to employ their people.
Yeah.
If that figure comes right, why is it that Uganda Investment Authority is still grappling with foreign investors kneeling before them on the contractual mandate for employment? That shows that we are bringing figures of the blackboard. When you are teaching these economists, you teach them how to formulate these figures and blindfold me, who didn't go to school. What proves that these budgets are only words and sham is the impression of the population. They don't want to listen to any TV pronouncing a budget or a radio. Way back, you will testify. Every Ugandan could sit on a radio, on a TV. When they have a mechanical, not sound TV, they have to go to a mechanic and make it and sit there and wait for
the national budget.
The national budget. Now the current budget is a taxation sheet to the working class to increase taxes to empower. When they were reading it, they said, what did they talk about Uganda Revenue Authority? That Uganda Revenue Authority will hunt us to our
Will double.
trillions. Will grieve every trader, every taxpayer
No
to
loophole.
read the trillions.
Yeah, we need 72.3 trillion.
72.
Yeah.
It is not that within the treasury we have this balance. It is that now it has grown with this figure which they don't have. And the figure will be taken. This is why in Uganda Revenue Authority, they don't have only tax officers who started tax to work there. They have attachments of the police, attachment of intelligence, attachment of military to forcefully collect tax. So that is the budget. That's
We
why
have less
under
than-
tax scheme, Awich Pollar is a practitioner because he's in
He has the mandate. You see, like the mandate.
He's in the secretariat.
Use the right
Yeah,
word.
you use the right word. He has the mandate. So,
Next,
Honorable Awich,
with a mighty mandate
Right.
to bring us the data you have in the entrepreneurship read. You have that office, entrepreneurship.
He's
read.
noted it, yes.
You come with them here and address us about on the science where you were having a steep funnel of it, of water. When you purify water to get clean water, you are having a chemically modified water, which is not clean.
not
for
naturally
human
modified.
Now,
Not purified, rather.
in 70s beginning, the Department of Water was the Directorate of Water. Now is a Directorate of Sewage and Water. So we first get
The sewage.
water next to the sewage. Then we use chemicals, the chlorine,
purify,
chlorine. What? This is why.
Yes, no.
This is why some diseases which were not in Uganda are succumbing.
The other one was the Directorate of Water. Now this one is National Sewage Corporation. Okay.
What-
Let's-
we need to do to
Maybe
digest
I'm not so
this
sure
thing.
whether I will.
Another task I'm giving these two because this one.
But he
is
has no
also-
mandate. You see, that
he
word.
will do it.
No, actually, you are the elder in this struggle here.
It's only
I
Honorable
want-
Awich Pollar that has
I
the
want
mandate.
these people to do research and know why our people are fed up to listen to the budget.
Okay.
They will give us reason which will guide this debate and know what we are using in English we adapted from schools. Is it right or not? Because we are using stores of the school to discuss what is not in the villages.
Sadly, we are left with 8 also means. But I wanted to.
Surrender it to me.
I-
Because they have
Because
raised
you
so
are-
many things.
With the mandate.
The two have raised so many things.
Before you take on your mandate.
We have overloaded you.
I think. Let me also read this to you, Honorable Ochieno, and of course Honorable Awich and Vianney, that the total peace, and know when you are pronouncing the word peace, you must also sound so peaceful. That there is total peace, as in total. I highlighted the word. There is total peace, which has enabled the government to see all this development. Pick it from there.
And total peace for which we must clap.
Yeah,
and
total peace.
Because the trouble causers are now in charge. But look, I just wanted to say this very quickly. As a matter of interest, we are having this conversation, and Vianney said referred. As a matter of interest, what normally would actually happen with these television things is the budget speeches of the days. You'd expect figures of inflation to be the big things. You'd expect interest rates to be big things, bank lending and borrowing rates and things like that. You'd expect questions of taxation at a particular level. You'd possibly expect regulatory reports on maybe particular categories of crops in terms of balance. Of course, we've got a much more liberalized economy at the moment. You'd have those. So touching people directly. But you'd also expect how these taxes would affect fuel for transportation, for transportation generally, including public transport, right, like buses and trains, which of course these guys have now swallowed, and Kasaija knows where they are, things like that. So it's very important. But also the other one is maybe I really hope that we're able to restabilize as a nation and begin to do things for the country rather than to fudge economic interests. Meaning that academic institutions, because you're subjecting us to research, many of these things are doctored and fudged figures to fit a very, very political narrative, which you can actually quite clearly see. Normally in governments around the world, and even in this government it ever happened, in this country ever happened, that Makerere University Research Institute, for instance, a particular unit, or perhaps the economics department, would come out with very rigorous and independent figures. But finally, there is what they call in other countries opinion polls, merely opinion polls. Independent opinion polls away from Afrobarometer, where we shall argue whether Museveni made a phone call or some other political organizations. Because people are questioned individually, and to an extent, Comrade which is right about some of these questions about this validity. You engage the citizens and talk about capitalist America. Capitalist America, it will reflect, because you will not play with the figures, because people know. As long as somebody is in New York and they know that the figures don't add up in terms of their salary, you're not going to categorize them and group them anyhow. So I hope we reach a stage in Uganda in which some of these conversations actually do take place. And then we've got independent observations in which when I get a phone call for research, or maybe I'm visited, I'm not visited by somebody with a yellow number, yellow card, because I want to tell a lie.
I have had the piece.
Sorry.
I have had the piece read there on the paper.
I did not mention the piece, but I leave my 1 minute for you in peace.
now, you can't be peaceful when you are poor. These figures, I wonder where they are coming from. Maybe they are ghost figures because of one thing.
Peace.
During the buyout, Uganda failed to pay Umeme. They ran to Stanbic Bank to borrow. Where do they get all this?
And Stanbic was our bank, which they had sold.
The mandate, you see, we have to take advantage of these words. Sir, I have the mandate.
Yes, and I will want to say mandating also in this context, because there was a debate somewhere whether or not I represent government.
No, I mean,
yes,
what I mean is that you are an insider there. So what you
yes, it is. This is what I want to say. I'm from the party secretariat. The contract in governance is between the political party and the people. It is the political party which markets a manifesto. People vote on that manifesto. Then we form government. Yeah. So being from the secretariat, I'm definitely the government is.
You have the mandate. You see, that's what.
That is the thing.
That's why I gave you my 1 minute.
You see, the understanding is because we contract government. Government is just contracted by us, the party. That is why we even have retirement age. There are those who are on contract for life, pensionable, 60 years. Then there are those we contract like ministers. For any time we want to contract you to be a minister or remove you. Then there are those like PSS, they have contract for 5 years. In other words, the government, the people in government are working on a contract to implement a manifesto where the ruling party has marketed. So we are the government. I want to say this because people see money in government and think government is more important than the party. No, it is not. They have money to operate, but they are not more important. So I am government. By that. Now, I want to make a few comments. One, why is Uganda Investment Authority struggling to bring investors? Now, to say they are bringing investors, and that is a sign of unemployment, that's not. Because people still have a mindset that there's more earning in white-collar job, in industries and factories. So even somebody who's employed in farming may want to change. So we do this to create for those who want, those who leave school. But that is not to say there's no employment. Now, the taxation and the challenges that is improving the military intelligence and what. Taxation is giving money to the state. Nobody will want to do it voluntarily.
Even during the days of Jesus, when Jesus was seen eating with tax collectors, it was a big thing. So somebody to pick his money and give. So don't be surprised, therefore, that state agencies are involved. Because taxation, you don't give money voluntarily. Even the days of Jesus, it was hard. Now, the other thing is water and sewage. You see, it's not literally because sewage is mixed. It's just because to easy management, you have water in the house. You can choose to say we are now going to create a department of sewage. But how will this sewage move from the house without water? So
you
it's just management. It is not literally that you mix feces and what. No. Now, why people don't listen to radio? Finally,
peace. About peace. Please don't leave the peace.
Why do people not listen to radio? First of all, we don't have concrete evidence to show that people have abandoned radio. But partly why people, for example, me, I don't listen to budget speech on the radio. Why? Because in the modern era, there are many avenues of getting this news. I get it on social media, I get it on newspaper, I get it on FM, I get it everywhere. In fact, therefore, the expansion of avenue of media has reduced the traditional. Remember the time they are quoting, where the traditional, the only source was radio. But now you have multiplicity of avenues of this information. So why would somebody instead measure that do people get this news or not? They get in various ways. Peace.
Closing with the peace.
I have always used
peace and any peace.
There is peace. I've always used this simple logic.
Total peace.
Total peace. Yeah. I've used this. It is crude, but it's real. Let me say, during the war in the north, you couldn't even be seen putting on Museveni's yellow T-shirt. You'd be killed. Virtually the entire north, nobody would put it. Now, I want to assure you, to show peace in Uganda, there are 73,000 villages. Now, NRM has given yellow bicycle. I can assure you, there's all the 73,000 villages have yellow bicycle. Why is it connected to peace? Because if there was insurgency, there was war against government, you don't ride those bicycles in those villages. Just the same way you wouldn't put on those T-shirts in Gulu. So the fact that there are 73,000 bicycles yellow, there's peace. There's peace. Otherwise, you would be told, some people will tell you to eat that bicycle with your own teeth.
I will give you.
So there's peace in the country.
I will give you a few seconds. I think like 20 or thereabouts to make your closing remarks. In regards to by and large, do you think this budget is achievable? And then we shall close from Comrade Matovu.
I close?
Yeah, sure.
I am very good at closing. I don't generate new debate. And I wish people
is
follow
our budget
me.
Okay, we added this
I wish people follow me. My closing remark is, this budget is good, okay? This budget is good, it will achieve its objective. But I call upon our cadres to maintain discipline. Whenever we had good budget, discipline, financial discipline, leakages in terms of corruption is still a challenge. Okay. So I call upon our cadres to be disciplined in this budget so that we achieve.
Oh, thank you. I was about to ask, like, since when have they been disciplined? Because
you want me to open a debate?
Not really. Okay.
No, not with the corruption that Comrade Awich is talking about, where 10 trillion of the 72 trillion is going to be eaten by a few individuals in corruption, and where their chairman is going to be able to say that leave them alone, and when they say leave that alone, nobody is able to touch their chairman. And their chairman,
is this achievable?
Who's chairman, who has nobody to challenge his position, and challenging his position is like challenging Jesus. Is it achievable? No, it's a fudged process.
At least out of 10.
We're expanding. We're expanding.
Give them a scale. On a scale of 10. On a scale of 10, how much do you think is achievable?
3 for efforts. The rest, you give it to the citizens of this country who really struggle to continue to survive.
I think we should go with that yardstick as a question. On a scale of 10, how many points would you give them that it is actually likely to be achieved?
It's a moral boosting one.
Which one? And we close.
The budget is a moral boosting one. It will not be achievable. To achieve goes with the population to pay and approve the money. Most millions will not be able. It will. The contributing many of those will be foreign investors, not local investors. And there are new avenues to protect local investors, there is foreign investment protection.
Okay. So no, you're not even marking us out of 10.
Unachievable.
No way. It is
Completely, it's a 0 out of 10.
Unachievable, yeah.
Viewers, let's begin from there next Monday. Hotline Show. Norman Tumuhimbise has been your host today. Keep it digital, Alternative Uganda as our Facebook page and also YouTube channel. Subscribe, continue sharing the entire discussion, but also where you have any topic or discussions that you would want us to tackle, forward them. We are there to serve all of you.
The Alternative Dig Talk. Real issues, real talk.